Hello, welcome back to the channel. It is Dan Nocturne Knives, and I have a quick video today all about stropping. These right here are some of my strops. These are all leather on wood, so it's a piece of leather glued directly onto a piece of wood. You can see that right there. And all of these strops are ones that I have made myself. The medium you use is up to your preference and what works and what's available for you. I am a proponent of leather on wood. That's what I have always used. I've played around with just plain wood before. I find I prefer leather. I think the feel of it, the performance, the longevity is all really good, and it's not that expensive. I think it's a good material. You can also use cloth. Even you could use denim. Take a piece of denim and glue it onto a piece of wood. That would be totally fine, or just staple it on, honestly, and apply compound on it and you'll be good to go. So you can use a wide variety, and obviously there are different kinds of leathers. Kangaroo leather is the really premium stuff. I have a kangaroo strop somewhere. It's really nice, but honestly the expense doesn't justify the benefits you get from that. So this is just bovine leather on wood, and I'll give you a quick tutorial on how to use a strop, and we can talk briefly on how to load and condition a strop. So to use a strop, it's pretty easy, but there are some techniques that can make it way easier. So I'm actually just finishing sharpening up this knife. This is my Arcane Design Praetheon. I took it off of my Veneve F1200 stone right here. These are stones, these are not strops. Going for a mirror polish on this one. I hit it on my 1 micron diamond compound strop, and then here is my 0.5 micron diamond strop. So that's what I'm going to use to finish off this edge and get that full mirror polish. So what's important with stropping is edge trailing motions. So that means the edge trails the stroke, the spine leads it, versus an edge leading stroke would be in this direction, like you're trying to cut into something. And obviously if you turn that around, this would be edge leading, this is edge trailing. When you're stropping, it is important to use approximately the same angle as you did when sharpening it. If you go at too high an angle, you'll dig the apex into the leather and you'll round over the apex. Just like if you were on a stone, if you were to jack up the angle and push, you're going to grind off your apex. Again, it's important not to go too low, or you won't be hitting the apex and you won't actually do anything to sharpen your knife or touch up the edge. You want to use approximately the same angle. There are a few different ways you can use to find that angle. You can set your knife on here and look directly at where the bevel is contacting the stone, lower it, and then raise it up and keep raising until you see the edge bevel actually contact the leather face. Like that. It might not come through on video, but you'll see a shadow underneath the edge bevel, and then once you hit the right angle, the shadow will disappear and the edge bevel will actually contact the leather. That's one way to do it. You can also just do it by feel, because the leather will feel different when you're actually hitting the bevel or when you're low or high. Or my preferred method is to set the knife on here, set it down at a lower angle than you know the edge bevel is sharpened at, and then gently draw the edge leading into the strop like this. And as you do that, slowly raise the angle like this. And you're going to just use very gentle pressure, go very slow, and as soon as you feel the edge bite into the leather, that's the angle that your edge was sharpened at, and that's the angle that you need to strop at. So this essentially guarantees that you'll be hitting the apex. So I start like this and gently drag it against the leather while I raise the angle, and there, I feel it catch into the leather. That's my angle right there. See if you can see that on a close scale. Right there, you can just see the edge. So I'm starting low, raising the angle, and now I'm biting into the leather. That's the angle. So you want to do that you bite into the leather, and then I like to lower my angle down just barely, like a half degree, maybe less if you can manage it, but just slightly a lower angle than when it bit into the leather, because with a substrate like leather, it obviously has give to it. It is malleable and pliable, so as you press into it and strop, it will very slightly wrap around your edge like this. So dropping your edge down just helps to guarantee you won't be rolling over your apex. Pressure-wise, you want to use a little bit more than the weight of the blade. Or if you're really just doing light finishing, just the weight of the blade. But gentle strokes here, and do more strokes rather than heavier pressure, because if you press in too hard, the leather will round over that apex, and you'll end up rounding your apex when you press in too hard. The number of strokes that you use is going to depend on the application. If you're just finishing an edge after sharpening on your stones, you should deburr as much as possible on your stones, and your strops should just be an accessory to that deburring and finishing. So you could use as little as 2 to 3 strokes, or 5, 10, 15, whatever. If you're going for a high level of polish, you are probably going to want to do more strokes on your strop, because that's going to help clean up your polish from the stones and make it look better. There's nothing wrong with that. The fewer strokes you do on your strop though, the more aggressive and toothy your edge will be. And if that's what you're going for, then I'd recommend fewer strokes and lighter pressure. And deburr really, really cleanly on your stones, and then you need less stropping after you sharpen. So that's how to use a strop. If you're touching up your edge after some use, you would just go and strop until it feels sharp again. And that's about it. This, as I said, 0.5 micron is going to be a great finishing grit. After your stones, if you're going for a mirror polish, I like to do 1 micron and then half micron, and that leaves me with a nice mirror polish. If you're touching up an edge, I would probably use something that's more coarse, 1 micron at the finest to touch up an edge. It actually works really well, but you can go coarser. You can do 2, 3, 5, 10 micron, whatever works for you. And the larger the micron, the more aggressive the compound will be, because the micron scale is different from the grit scale. Micron measures the actual abrasive size, so larger micron equals larger abrasive. Smaller micron equals smaller abrasive. Quick coffee break. That is how to strop. And in terms of the motion, I like to hold it just at this angle, exactly like I would sharpen. And just like I would sharpen, I work the blade in sections. So I'm going to start at the tip and go like tip to about 1/3 of the way down, like this. And then I get the flat portion. And it's easier if you break it up into sections rather than trying to hit the whole edge in one stroke. So work the tip section here, like that, tip and around the belly, and then get into the flat section. And feel free to stop and do that angle finding technique where you bite into the leather as many times as you need. Just remember, be gentle or you'll tear up your strop all over the place. That's really not an issue to tear up your strops. You can see on this one, I've chewed the hell out of it. It still works just fine. It's really not an issue. And you can resurface a strop quite easily. This one is 1/8 micron CBN compound. Now it's also important between strops, you want to clean your edge. Take some rubbing alcohol and clean off the blade in between each strop. Otherwise you will be cross-contaminating. So if you go 1 micron and then to half micron and you don't clean your blade, you'll have these 1 micron abrasives now on your half micron strop, and the grit will be contaminated. If you're going for a good looking mirror polish, that will be a problem, because now both of your strops they have the same size grit, so going to a smaller strop isn't getting you anything, at least not visually. This knife, by the way, is my Arcane Design Praetheon, customized by my friend Shiny EDC. He did the Cerakote on this. Looks absolutely amazing. Get a quick edge test on this. Yeah, it's really sharp. great edge off. It was already great off the stone. The strop just takes it to that next level. Really makes getting those extremely high level edges a little bit easier. So there you go. Now this is what a strop looks like before it's loaded. Just plain raw veg tan leather. This is one with the rough side out. I have made a few of these. I don't generally prefer these, but some people do like them. So I've made a couple of them. This one just has some of the branding left from the leather, which is fine. So here's what it looks like, a nice smooth piece of leather. Just to show you what it looks like before you load the compound on. Now this strop is getting pretty heavily used. You can see the surface is getting blackened. Here's what the compound looks like when first applied. Here's what it will look like after you use it. And you can see on my 1/2 micron, the compound is pink when applied, but you can see all that gray. That's metal that I've actually abraded from knives by using the strop. That is actual metal from the edge getting embedded in there, and when your strop is covered in this metal, it does not cut as effectively. So you have to go and condition your strops at some point. There are a few ways to do this. My personal favorite way to clean off a strop, at least with this works really well with diamond compound, is with just a rubber eraser like this, a big rubber pencil eraser. You can take it and rub, and you can see that compound is flaking off just like pencil marks would on a piece of paper. And it doesn't completely remove it, but you don't need to completely remove it. Just get rid of that top layer where all the metal is. Get rid of most of that and you'll be good. You can also use like the side of a knife to scrape this off, or a razor blade to scrape it off. Or you can even just take a piece of sandpaper and resurface the whole thing. You can sand off the top layer of leather, and then that will serve dual purpose of stripping the compound off and getting, or at least lessening, any of these gouges you've put in here. So I've actually resurfaced this once. I'm pretty sure I used 220 or maybe 180 grit sandpaper. And as I said, that will help remove any of these scars or gashes that you create accidentally, because you will, I guarantee, you will accidentally stab your strop as you're using it eventually. And over time, it will get more and more gouged. Eventually, you'll want to resurface it. Not an issue. You can do that many times over the life of a strop. Really not an issue. So this is what I'm looking for. I've removed most of the old compound. It's still colored here. You can see the leather is colored, but I've removed most of the actual compound. It's still going to look like this. I would never use an eraser to try and take off compound to then put a different type of compound on the leather strop. Once you've used it for one type of compound, you can't go to another compound, at least not a more fine compound. So this has been used with 1 micron. I could never put a more fine compound on here. There will always be some contamination from that 1 micron. Now, if I wanted to use 2 micron, I could do that all day, 4, 6, whatever. That's fine to go up, but you can't go down. So I would recommend multiple strops if you want to be running multiple compounds. You really need multiple strops. I also recommend labeling your strops. I haven't actually labeled either of these. This one I have labeled CBN 1/8 micron. I would recommend labeling every strop so you don't get them confused. Now, here's the compound I'm using on this strop, Stroppy Stuff, 1 micron. It comes in this spray bottle and very easy to reapply. Normally I would do this outside or over a sink or something, but for the sake of the video, I'm just going to get a couple of paper towels and put those down. So you can take it, hold your strop, hold the spray out maybe 6-8 inches away, and get a good spray just like that. And then you want to take your finger and just rub it in all over that strop. Just like that. Get nice even coverage, especially to the edges. The edges of the strop do the most work. They do a lot more work than the middle. If you noticed, before I took most of that old compound off, most of the accumulated metal was here along the edges. And you can see it on here. Most of the accumulated metal is here and here. The ends get much less use, and that's just a natural function of the strokes you're going to be taking. So use your finger, get that all over, take a little spray, get it all over, especially those edges, just like this. And it's fine, it will look streaky, it does not matter, it really doesn't. And there you go. That's how you're gonna load it. And this compound takes, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes to dry, 5-10 minutes. All compounds are gonna be different in terms of how long they take to dry. But just leave it until it's dry. If you try and strop with it wet, you'll just strip off compound, you'll end up with a big layer on your blade above your edge. It'll be annoying, don't try it. Just let the compound dry. In terms of what to look for in a strop, here are the things that I like. I like just a solid basic block strop like this. Just a block. I don't need a handle. I don't need anything fancy. It doesn't need to be super fancy leather. This is just a regular basic leather. I buy it in bulk from Tandy. Just a basic veg tan leather. This leather is pretty, it's decently thin. I think this is 5 to 6 ounce leather, maybe it's 4 to 6. I like it on the thinner and harder side because you get less compression when you press your edge into it. I like a nice hard leather to keep it from wrapping around the apex when you can press it in. Just on a basic piece of wood, you want the leather to go all the way to the edge of the wood. So I take these and I cut them by hand. I glue the leather on and I cut it by hand on each piece of wood so that it perfectly lines up with the edge. The reason you want it lined up with the edge is because if you have something like a Spyderco that has the edge going all the way down to the ricasso here, and your leather is not flush against the side of the wood, you won't be able to get the heel right on. You see, you'll run this ricasso into the wood. Imagine this leather is shifted and not all the way at the edge of the wood. I'll be hitting the wood. I can't get my edge all the way on here. I want that leather to go all the way to the edge of the wood and be perfectly flush here. So it's supported and I can get all the way to the heel on any knife. And then on my strops, I give the corner, the edge, just a slight bevel. You can see that right here, just to prevent it fraying or rounding over at all. So those are the things you're gonna look for in the strop. Thin leather, thin hard leather, just a basic strop. If that's what you're looking for, you can pay a lot of money for a strop. I don't like to, I like just a basic strop. And most importantly, you want that leather all the way to the edge of the wood. You do not want a gap between the leather and the edge of the wooden block. You want this perfectly flush. So there you go. I think that's everything I have to say about a strop. I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a thing or two. Got any questions? Go drop them in the comment section down below. If you like the video, give me a like and subscribe. I would definitely appreciate it. And with all that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.